Dan Vo said that when tired of city life, he would return to the countryside to grow vegetables and raise fish. Perhaps the inspiration for that song comes from this movie, which tells the story of the main character, Hee Won. A girl who lost her father at a young age had just finished her college entrance exam when her mother silently left, leaving behind only a letter and an empty house. Hee Won, who grew up in the countryside, always dreamed of a vibrant and bustling life, so when she heard the news of passing the entrance exam, the unfortunate girl immediately moved to the capital to live. However, life in the city was too suffocating. Hee Won juggled work and school, leaving her almost no time for herself. She could only grab a few boxes of rice from the supermarket to eat on the go. By the time she ate, it was stone cold, but still, the main character remained resilient, managing to support herself. But in life, who doesn't have dreams of eating delicious food, dressing well, and living peacefully? One day, having to eat a burnt rice box, while receiving news of failing the teaching certificate exam, while her boyfriend, who took the exam with her, passed. Hee Won thought her life was as dark as a pot's bottom, so she burst into tears from feeling sorry for herself. To escape reality, she decided to quit her job in the city and return to her old house in the countryside. When she got home in the winter with snow covering everything and a broken spirit, the first thing she wanted to do was to have a hot, delicious meal. She searched her house and found a little rice and some expired flour. So she hurried to the garden, dug through the snow, and found a few frozen Napa cabbages along with some herbs. To be honest, Hee Won's life wasn't that short. She didn't know how long it had been, but the garden still had vegetables, and the house was still hers. She sliced the Napa cabbage to cook soup with the herbs and the few remaining spices. The little rice was cooked to make rice. In the freezing cold of winter, feeling both miserable and lonely, the hot rice with Napa cabbage soup couldn't warm her heart enough. The main character sniffed and found the flour was expired. But it was still edible, so she decided to cook flour soup for dinner. After preparing the flour, it had to rest for 2 hours. Taking advantage of this time, she scooped snow to create a small path. Once done, Hee Won took the remaining Napa cabbage. She rolled it in diluted flour and then fried it, after which she added chili powder to a pot of boiling water. Along with spices and sliced Napa cabbage, she dropped pieces of the kneaded flour into the pot. A meal with soup that was both spicy and fragrant with the smell of onions and rich in flavor. But still full of fiber from the fried Napa cabbage, it filled the hungry stomach of the main character. In this area, the population was sparse, but everyone was very nosy, so the news of Hee Won's return spread quickly. The first 2 people to visit her were Young Suk and Jae-ha. They were childhood friends who grew up with the main character. In reality, she was not only tired of the chaotic city life and loneliness and those times of being overwhelmed by deadlines, but the unlucky girl also constantly felt troubled about her mother's sudden departure. Now that she was back home, memories of the mother who abandoned Hee Won flooded her mind. The next morning, her aunt appeared, feeling sorry for her neglected niece, so she took the main character to her house to have a good meal along with complaints about life's hardships, and then she also gave her a lot of food to take home. Jae-ha also came to visit and brought the little dog so Hee Won would have a companion to sleep with during the cold winter nights without staying in the countryside. The little girl didn't willingly take care of the dog for long, but her squinty-eyed friend let it go and went home, seeing the little dog just like himself. Abandoned by her only relative, all the memories of being left by her mother rushed back to the female lead. To comfort herself, she decided to cook a sweet dish to treat her 2 close friends. When Hee Won soaked the red beans until soft and then mashed them, the glutinous rice and red beans would be cooked until they could be easily crushed by hand. Then, the female lead used green vegetables and gardenia fruit with hot water to create a natural color for the mashed red beans. This would be used as the base layer of the cake, while the ground rice would be dyed with various colors and fluffed up. Then, pour it directly into the steaming basket to form layers of different colors, and once ready, the female lead placed it on low heat to steam. Just a little while later, using chopsticks to poke from the top down. If it goes through, it's done. This is called 4-color rice cake. Aromatic and sweet, once steamed, the cake will be soft and fluffy, with just the right amount of chewiness. This is one of the dishes her biological mother used to make. The female lead recalled the recipe and proceeded to cook. This helped her feel more at peace and lighthearted. The atmosphere of gathering with childhood friends was very joyful, so the next day, the little girl decided to make rice wine for the next gathering, adding a bit of a vitamin boost by steaming the rice before mixing in the yeast. Using her bare hands, she fluffed the rice wine, then squeezed it slightly to let the rice grains expand. After that, she placed it into a clear glass jar and poured in the rice water, covering the mouth of the jar with a layer of white cloth, and waited until the rice wine released its liquid, then separated the floating layer that had a smell like wine. At this point, she would use a clean cloth to filter out the liquid. She had to squeeze it very well to extract as much wine as possible. The rice wine was now a cloudy white with a gentle aroma. It had a mild scent of malt and wine yeast. Although the alcohol content wasn't high, the method was simple. It also had a sweet, refreshing taste, so this type of wine was very popular among Korean women. She quickly prepared a few simple snacks and called her 2 close friends over to enjoy her winemaking skills. The spirits of the wine stirred excitement throughout the small house, and the chill of winter was pushed back. In her drunken haze, Jay had joked that farming was very interesting. It brought him a lot of hope and peace. This made the female lead start to entertain the idea of staying in her hometown longer, and then winter passed, and spring arrived. The trees sprouted new buds and flowers bloomed everywhere. Seeing the potato sprouts emerging from the ground with their vibrant green, she suddenly felt her spirits lift, and all her pain and pressure began to fade as she started planting some types of crops. After a short time in the garden, the female lead felt hungry, so she showcased her cooking skills by stir-frying noodles. Fragrant with a few spices randomly picked from the garden, to make the plate of noodles healthy and balanced, she had to add a bit of green from the vegetables. When the noodles had a nice texture, and the spices were fragrant, it was time to serve the noodles on a plate, as this season, flowers were blooming everywhere. So she reduced the 2 types of white and purple flowers sprinkled on the plate of noodles for decoration, then ate it all, and the cooking was all taught by her mother. So every time she makes any dish, memories of her mother come flooding back. Today, she chose a fresh cabbage for the season. The fresh cabbage reminded her of the cabbage pancakes her mother used to make when she was very young. She shredded the cabbage and mixed it with diluted flour, adding seasoning and dried shrimp. She put some cooking oil in the pan, waited for it to heat up, then poured the cabbage and flour mixture in and reduced the heat. While waiting for the cabbage to cook, she cracked an egg in another pan, then placed it on top and fried it for another 2 minutes until all the ingredients were cooked. They would stick together to form a round cake with the green color of cabbage. The white yellow of the egg and the rich aroma of the cooking oil made the cabbage cake more vibrant. The mother would use a comb to garnish on top and sprinkle a little chopped rosemary. Finally, she would put shredded mackerel on top of the cake to complete the dish. Because her mother often made such special dishes, Hee Won once thought of her as a genius chef, but she didn't like cooking because it reminded her of her mother. So she decided to make a sandwich with egg and the leftover cabbage when the mailman arrived. He delivered an envelope containing her mother's potato bread recipe. The potatoes, after being steamed, were mashed and mixed with flour in the correct ratio. Then she shaped them into cakes and baked them in the oven. Hee Won used to love this dish, but only now did her mother finally let her know the recipe. However, her quietly leaving without any regard for her for so many years and now sending a letter back made her feel confused. Confused as she might be, she still had to eat, so she tossed the bunches of white flowers hanging down on the way home. These bunches of flowers, after being washed, would be dipped in diluted flour and then dropped into a pot of boiling oil. Even the wild mugwort growing by the roadside would share the same fate, becoming a fried mugwort wrapped in flour. The dish, after frying, would be very beautiful. They remain the white flower bunches and the mugwort but would be delicious, crispy, and rich on the tip of the tongue. Spring quickly passed, making way for the scorching summer. The female lead often took the opportunity to go to the bank where she worked to enjoy the air conditioning. She knew her best friend was under a lot of pressure from work and the old boss. So she advised her friend to quit and go home to plant trees instead, but her friend got angry. She thought that was the behavior of those who look down on work. Her friend's reaction reminded the female lead of how she had once sulked at her mother. When her mother gave her advice, she had made a sweet treat to comfort her. Hee Won was very happy with it. First, we will mash the steamed chestnuts, then mix 2 egg yolks with a little flour and cocoa powder. Then add fresh milk and stir well, spreading a layer of ground chestnuts at the bottom of the cup. Pour the flour, milk, cocoa, and egg mixture on top and steam until cooked. Finally, to make the dish more colorful and add sweetness, we will sprinkle a layer of granulated sugar on top and let it melt into a caramel color. At this point, the beautiful cake is finished with a crispy, sweet layer of sugar on top. Using a spoon to break the sugar layer brings both a refreshing feeling and joy to the eater. Because they are about to explore the creamy and smooth flavor of the cake underneath, this dish has made her very happy. Forgetting all her anger, she decided to make a similar cake to make up with her best friend. When the anger was erased, life returned to normal, but the weather was too hot. So she used shredded cucumber soaked in cold water, drained, and mixed it with a type of cream. Refreshing, she didn't forget to decorate with a cherry tomato on top. Delicious and juicy on top, then she enjoyed it herself in front of the fan. This simple dish made her remember the taste of tomatoes she used to eat with her mother while she told stories about love with her late husband. Hee Won herself is also facing issues in her love life. Since returning to her hometown, she hasn't contacted her boyfriend. Feeling sad, she sought out her 2 best friends to confide in. At this point, the main character learned that Jiha had also worked in the city. But he was often scolded by his boss, so he decided to quit and return to his hometown. He too had to leave behind a vibrant life but full of boredom. Especially having to break up with his sweet girlfriend because she didn't want to follow him to this remote place. Even though they broke up a long time ago, his eyes still held longing for his ex-girlfriend. After a conversation and drinking with friends, Hee Won returned to say goodbye to her boyfriend in relief. Time passed, autumn came with golden rice fields. She went to the bank to withdraw the last few coins in her account to support her life in the countryside. Coincidentally, the 2 girls saw Jaeha with his ex-girlfriend. Having liked him, the friend wanted to eat something delicious, but the main character believed that the best dish is the one she cooks herself. So she guided her friend to make stir-fried rice cakes with cabbage when the garlic was fragrant in the oil pan. It was time to add dried chili and sliced cabbage to stir fry for a livelier color. We could add some chili sauce. Then, drop in the prepared rice cakes to soak up the flavor and season with various herbs. The dish was both sour and spicy. It truly matched the mood of someone who was bored with life. Then Jae-ha came to announce that his ex-girlfriend wanted to get back together. But he liked someone else, bluntly sending her back to the city without caring about trivial love matters. The main character decided to devote all her love to delicious autumn dishes. It was also the time to collect fallen chestnuts on the mountainside. She gathered a full basket of chestnuts and brought them home to peel and soak in salt water. But he liked someone else, so he coldly sent her back to the city, no longer caring about silly love affairs. The female lead decided to dedicate all her love to delicious autumn dishes. It was also the time to gather fallen chestnuts on the mountainside. She collected a full basket of chestnuts and brought them home to peel and soak in salt water. After a night, the chestnuts had soaked up water and absorbed sweetness, and would be boiled and finally have their skins removed. Still stuck to the chestnuts during the last boil, a lot of sugar would be added to the water. Then it would be boiled thoroughly to make sweet chestnuts. But life in the countryside was not just a peaceful drift every day. The late autumn season is the harvest time for the farmers, and a promising crop is waiting for them after a year of hard work. It is arduous, yet that night, a storm came, and heavy rain poured down on the countryside, causing the rice to bend and fall to the ground the next day. GH's apple garden, laden with fruit, was devastated, with fallen apples covering the ground, witnessing the family's struggle through loss. And challenges from nature stirred many thoughts in the female lead. She admired the ripe persimmons on the tree. She peeled them clean and brought them to hang on the porch to make wind-dried persimmons. After harvesting the fruit, they must be peeled carefully, hung on a rack, and dried in front of the house. When the persimmons become withered, they must be gently massaged so that the fruit's flesh remains soft and not dry. The remaining task is to wait until winter. When it arrives, the wind-dried persimmons will be sweet, fragrant, and chewy to eat. The sight of the ripe persimmons, orange-yellow, brightens up the porch, making her realize that her mother always taught her that people need to learn to wait. Because everything has its own appropriate timing, just like her mother's sudden disappearance was for her. However, she had to devote her entire youth to prepare. Her mother sacrificed her whole life for her daughter until Hee Won turned 18. Only then did she decide to leave to have time for herself. During those years, she quietly taught her daughter everything from cooking to enjoying life, as well as building resilience and character in a letter to her daughter before leaving. Her mother hoped the female lead would be strong so that despite any difficulties, she could stand up and pursue her dreams. She also reminded her daughter that when she becomes too tired, she should come back home. It is only now that she understands her mother's feelings. She decided to write a letter to her mother. And once again, leave her hometown for the city to start over, shedding all her burdens. She realized that her mother suddenly abandoning her, Hee Won, felt like reclaiming her life's vitality in the city. Because of that, she felt lighter. She recognized the pure tranquility of the countryside, with warm meals, where strong seedlings rise, and where family and friends always embrace her with open arms. It is the peaceful little forest that she returns to whenever she feels tired. The film reminds us to pursue the life we dream of, but do not forget to let our souls rest. The film ends here. See you again in the next films.